Alright, homies, going into the second game of the day. This just got a lot more exciting because Gigabyte Marines, they beat Immortals with a crazy game. Crazy game. But right now, we have kind of a banger as well. This kind of, we expect Longzhu to come in with a lot of strength here, but Fnatic, this is going to set the tone for Fnatic for the rest of the day. Started with a Cassiopeia ban from Longzhu. I want to talk about the history of these two matchups or what we should expect from both teams, but I want to also be very active in the draft here. Jarvan ban, I think we will see a lot less Sejuani first picks. I think if anything, teams will start to first picking Xayah and play with Rakan and Janna, because I think this combination is absolutely crazy. Janna with Xayah is really broken. Reckless with his very fine combed hair. Prepare for the game. Let's see what the next ban is for Fnatic. I hope it's not some Sejuani. That's the Janna ban. Okay, that is interesting. Like, Janna has been very powerful in this tournament, right? And the main thing is when you give up Xayah, there's not a lot of 80s that do well with Janna. I feel like, sure, you can pick Janna Kog'Maw, but it's not the same as Janna Xayah. Janna Xayah just synergizes so well because they can push waves really fast. It's kind of like Sivir Janna 2.0, but Xayah has just so much kind of utility for herself, which makes her a stronger pick. And that's a Gnar ban. Interesting. I think it's just a throwaway ban because they don't have anything else to ban, and in a lot of cases they would ban it second here. They would ban it in the second phase to line up for a Cho'Gath pick. But with the Janna ban and Rakan ban, that puts a lot of value on Lulu, and I'm not too sure if I like this. Like, the trade-off will be Sejuani and Gragas. Fnatic will most likely pick Gragas if I know them, and whoa, guess they're not. They just go for the Rek'Sai, something more aggressive, something that is more of an old school Soaz. I mean, old school Broxa, and the Twitch gets locked in instantly as well. This is quite crazy. It feels like Fnatic are just aiming for comfort here more than anything else, and they're just playing their own style. And I can appreciate that. I think that is where Fnatic has had the most success, and why when you're against the ropes, this is what you have to rely on. Longzhu are hovering Sejuani. Personally, I like Gragas more at this point in time, but Sejuani also does fine into Rek'Sai. Rek'Sai can pop her passive with his Prey Seeker, and we're expecting the AD pick here from Longzhu as well. I want to know the reasoning why we never see Lulu and Xayah together, because this is an AD combination that we've never seen. And maybe it just doesn't synergize too well. And compared to Janna and of course Rakan, you can see a clear difference in synergy when it comes to the AD role. No Xayah this time around because the best two supports are banned for it. We see a Syndra third pick. This means that there's some supports might be banned. Maybe Taric will be banned. I think that's a good support that can go with Twitch. I think that is what Longzhu have to target here with their bans. Maybe they will ban to also set themselves up for even a better blind pick top lane. We might see a Trundle ban last and then just a Cho'Gath lock-in. This might be a case that Fnatic might look for, or I mean Longzhu might look for here with Shen ban and then a Trundle ban, and then just blind pick Cho'Gath and then counter pick the mid lane and then be happy with it. A neat solution would be as well where if they would be afraid of a Jace counter pick against Cho'Gath and they just have one ban to expand on Cho'Gath, then they could potentially pick Jace and whoa, they could potentially pick Jace and Cho'Gath, but the reason they are banning Maokai and lining themselves up for a situation where Soaz will have a hard time is because they have Jace in the bank. They can pick Jace at any cost, they can pick Jace at any time, and they will have a fine match up top regardless. So if they're banning to set up scenario where Cho'Gath is going to be picked and there's no other champion here for Soaz to pick, like what else is he going to pick here? Maokai is out, Shen is out, and Galio is out, Gnar is out too, even though you wouldn't want to pick that. Jarvan is out too. Maybe Soaz is going to play Camille. Will he play Camille against Jace? I even think that's a hard matchup. Renekton, alright, works. Matchup wise, I think Renekton is fine against Jace, but scaling wise, you're going to have a hard time. You're going to also have a very rough time against this team composition. So just Sona was locked in. Ardent Sense of Sport has a strong lane, can get ganked very easily. That is her weakness. She has a powerful lane phase, and I think as a champion, I think it's a fine pick. I think her ultimate can be clutch in some scenarios. She doesn't provide the super utility or the super buff for her AD or like for her team. I was really freaked out from the sound that just happened outside, man. This was absolutely bonkers. What the hell was that sound, dude? That was freaking loud. That was crazy loud. Nevertheless, looking at the drafts, Sona was picked together with Twitch. I think they're gonna do fine bot lane. I think definitely they can contest it, maybe even win. I think there's a scenario where they are winning bot lane against Kog'Maw and Lulu. We have Ryze against Syndra in mid lane. That's a matchup we've seen plenty of times, and I feel like it can go either way. Syndra can set up them ganks, and Ryze has to kind of... I'm hoping that Ryze runs cleanse in this game, because the previous game we saw Pobelter and he just didn't run cleanse, and I think that was a big issue for him. And even in this game, I think it makes sense to run cleanse against Renekton, against the Sona. There's very little things that can lock Ryze down here. There are only the stuns, and if he can break himself free from that, he can be very mobile and do a lot of great things here. Ryze is going to have a good time hitting both the Renekton and the Rek'Sai in team fights, and scaling wise, it's heavily in favor of Longzhu. So if Longzhu managed to stay kind of even for 15 minutes in this game, I think Fnatic have no chance to come back. Sure, maybe they can create some miracle situation where Sona ults, or maybe Twitch is ahead and he can still create wonderful things, but scaling wise, I feel like Longzhu win in every position, arguably not in AD carry, but even in AD carry, you know, sure, Twitch has some weak targets to target here. Like if Twitch comes from a good angle, you can always think about the possibility of, will Twitch pop off here and do amazing things and kill the entire backline and put himself in a situation where he's super far ahead and just carries the game. Possible, but in general, Fnatic want to get up ahead. They want to get ahead in the mid lane matchup. BD is not running cleanse. Maybe it's just me. Maybe I am just super wrong. Hopefully someone can correct me if I am not wrong. But this is the second game we see no cleanse. In this game, I think it's fine, because it's like Sona, Syndra, and Renekton. It's not like an Ashe that is going to jump into you, and sometimes like the movement speed can save you from the Syndra stun, the movement speed can save you from the Renekton stun, and the same can be said from Sona, right? Sure, the same can be said by Ashe ultimate, but I think in general, you know, the previous game I felt like it was kind of a no-brainer. In this one, I think it's arguable. I think it's arguable. I would love to run cleanse, but it's not a 100% necessity. Khan kind of walks up a bit too far. I'm not too sure what he was looking for. I think he was looking to find a good angle to auto-attack Soil before he walks in, because if he found the angle on him, then it would have been a lot better. Caps starts off with a good trade. He gets that level 2 power spike. BDD is losing half HP in mid lane, but he has 3 potions, of course, or biscuits if you prefer to call them that. And he can use them up because he started with Sapphire Crystal. The main thing we have to pay attention to here is Broxah's jungle path. He went for a Raptor into red buff, and he's continuing down bottom side. I don't think he should pay too much attention to the bottom side in the early game. I think if anything is going to happen anywhere, it's going to be in mid lane, and it's going to be around top side. Kaz is doing something interesting here, or not interesting, but something that we've seen more frequently in this tournament at least, where junglers are going for the red into the blue into the Gromp. We see a clash already. Whoa, this is low HP BDD already. 1 for 1, I think in whose favor? I think it can be argued the same. Caps has no flash here. Maybe Kaz can create something else. He has long cooldowns. The E is going to hit. The cleanse is going to also be expanded. Looking at the summoner usage, we see everything used. The wave is slow pushing towards Caps, so he's very happy with this. The main thing here is that if Sejuani is going to push this in, or maybe cancel a recall for Caps, because the dream scenario for Caps is that he bases, can come back in time for the wave, but right now, because Kaz does this, pushes it in, the punishment is going to be less severe than it could have been here for BDD. So Sejuani is very far ahead, and that is a very good thing in a game where the enemy team relies on a lot of early game pressure. The main thing with Sejuani being ahead is that it's a quick transition in terms of pressure to the other side of the lane. So the fact that Sejuani has the double buffs, there are no double buffs here on Caps, and Rexa was the one that got the kills, it means so much here. In the scenario that was favorable before, where Caps had to pick up this massive weight on the turret, because Cuz pushed it in, it's not that beneficial anymore. Now it's reversed, Ryze is the one freezing, he has a tier, he got a tier base, a clean tier base, and he's now freezing the lane, is going to catch up in XP, because Caps is going to lose some here. So big issue here that Sejuani has double buffs, and a 1-for-1 is definitely beneficial for the team that wants to scale into this game. A big question mark is also how the top lane matchup is going to pan out. Renekton is a champion that we haven't seen with a lot of success lately, and I feel like it's a massive risk against a player like Khan to try to pull out a Jace. Like in this matchup, I think it's a skill matchup where Renekton could potentially set up ganks, but you can see like the CS differential is already building up, and the fact that Cuz got that double buff in mid lane is going to matter so much here, because he's level 5 against the Broxah level 4, so he can contest everything that he does, and he's going to be stronger in most 2v2s already against Broxah. Even harder so when Sejuani is going to reach level 6, because her ultimate is way more powerful than Renekton's ultimate. The main thing is that in mid lane maybe there's a cleanse. Soaz is very low here. This is reminding me of the situation where Huni was low under the turret. Rek'Sai is in position though, but they can easily one-shot the Renekton here if he stays too long, and the summoners here that they can use. But sharing XP here for Broxah and Soaz is suboptimal for Soaz, and he's still in a very tough pickle here. And Longzhu are in a great position to continue playing the game. PDD, they get... Whoa, Reckless is low. He has the barrier and Prey is following, but the bot lane is also... it seems like it's also not working out for Fnatic. So reassessing the situation, you know, I want to talk about more about Sejuani, how it interacts, because she got a double buff. She came out of it with a kill. It means so much because she impacts both top lane, she impacts mid lane, and she basically wants to match Rek'Sai at every turn. And if she is slightly stronger than Rek'Sai, that could make or break a 2v2. It could make or break a 3v3, and that is so important. And already now, big CS differential now in favor of Khan. That is where the goal difference lies. BDD managed to, like, Cuz definitely saved the situation in mid, because he pushed in the wave and Caps had to stay long enough to catch that entire wave. And then BDD came back and Caps didn't base yet. He didn't base it because he didn't have time. There was about 2.5 mini waves at the turret, which takes a lot of time for a turret to kill, right? This is, you know, if counted, this is about, you know, could be up to like 40 turret shots or 36 turret shots. You know, this is a massive number of turret shots. And I don't know the exact number. I just pulled something out of my behind, but you know, you catch my drift, right? It takes a lot of time, and Ryze came back in time, and Caps was low mana, low everything, and then the wave bounces because the wave was pushed in. BDD just heals away, and that is the argument for heal against Syndra, right? It gives you move speed and you can dodge abilities. That's also why a lot of people ran Ghost against Syndra as well, because you could just ghost it up and move around and dodge a lot of spells, right? And I think that was Pobelt's reasoning as well, but I think it was a tough price to pay eventually, I feel. You know, I feel like the cleanse is just, you know, sure, if you're really skilled, heal is better, but I just feel like the cleanse is more consistent. So the stun now lands on Jessus, but the heal gets used, and Reckless is now in a tough position. He might have to flash. Flash is very late because he's greedy with it. Wow. So that was the level 6 from Sejuani. We were talking about other stuff, and we didn't notice that a gank came down. Looking at the information of Fnatic, like they had most angles covered, but when they push up too far, then Sejuani can come even from the vision and just queue in and throw the ultimate and catch Reckless or Jessus. And I think that is the weakness of Sona, right? That she's very sustainable to ganks, and not sustainable, but susceptible to ganks. Alright, Longzhu now. Cuz now very low. Takes this Syndra ultimate. Perfect situation here because he used his spells and then he walked out with low HP. Doesn't need to stay in the fight anymore, and Caps used his ultimate. And a 1-for-0 situation for Longzhu. Soaz used his flash, so did Broxah, and that was quite rough. Jessus now with the flash. Whoa! Holy moly! Now this is a real Kog'Maw. This is Longzhu showing what Kog'Maw can really do. The main thing here for Fnatic is their approach is that they try to win in the early game and they accept the fact that they maybe are weaker than Longzhu in the later parts of the game, and I think maybe that was their strategy coming into it. But I'm going to be honest, I'm not too big of a fan of this Renekton Rek'Sai Jazz that they're trying to pull off. So we see the situation once again. Sejuani has no ultimate, Syndra has ult, Rek'Sai is also in the mix. The main thing here is that Sejuani gets away just in time to tank the Syndra ultimate, and Syndra without the ultimate is not going to have enough damage to burst down anyone here on Longzhu, even though, you know, Soaz flashes and doesn't get anything. It was a flash for flash pretty much, and Fnatic here, the big problem here is that they were forced to base, came back to lane, and the enemy team is freezing the wave and they have a big level advantage. You know, they're freezing the lane and they have a big level advantage, and the trades, the first trade that was pretty big and we saw the Fnatic were forced to base, this put Fnatic behind on XP, and now the gank from Sejuani, I can't even freaking pronounce it, Sejuani, the gank from Sejuani put Fnatic even further behind, and they lost experience, and Longzhu were in a scenario where they were freezing the wave and they were out-leveling the enemy. So the moment Fnatic walked up, they just got traded on, committed on, and it was a big issue. Fnatic now with no summoners in bottom, we can imagine that Longzhu are going to continue pressuring. They can do it through mid lane now, and the 2v2 in mid can be very explosive, but I feel like it's in favor of Longzhu because at this point I don't feel like Syndra can one-shot someone, I don't feel like Fnatic can one-shot someone, I feel like that's something that they are heavily relying on when they have these two picks. Renekton in the top lane is also, he's at the same items as Jace, right? So there's still some potential there where he can create something, but no flash on Renekton makes it harder. Khan is also ahead on experience. It's also important to note. What I like about BDD is that he's very, very good at, you know, just pushing at the right time and playing to the right side. This is something that maybe Korean mid laners are better at when it comes to avoiding ganks, but BDD does it perfectly. So we have a trade-off as well. You can see that Fnatic are just giving up the bot side and rotated into mid, and the play for them was to rotate in the mid, catch whatever wave, and be ready for the potential play of Longzhu, where they do the rotation from top into mid and try to take a turret. Usually when you commit into play, like Fnatic just did, and they send 3 topside, it's very good for the bot lane to follow, because in most cases, if you don't see the enemy team, they're going to try to equalize, and then you're just under the turret and you're not actually doing anything. In this case, Fnatic's bot lane, they actually pushed a mid wave, and they actually made something happen. So I like this type of play from most teams. When you make a play on the other side, you try to follow and be at the same page and at the same side, because when you commit to one side, you want to give up the other, and you have to kind of play it as if the enemy team is going to make that decision to play into bottom. So we got turret for turret, but Longzhu got the first one because of the heavy pressure that they applied on bottom. See the Ginsu's Rage Blade buy on Prey as well, almost finished. And CS wise, you know, it's not a big deal for Twitch, but the main thing here is that Kog'Maw actually got solo gold. BDD is also trading very frequently when his jungler is also around. I think that's something that BDD does very, very well. He knows his matchup beautifully, and he can do those trades mechanically at a very high level, but his decisions to make the trades at the right time, not take massive risks, is what makes him such a solid player. We see a trade situation, and considering the state of the game, it's not too bad for Fnatic that they are in trade situations, but all in all, their composition doesn't scale that well. Like, sure, in mid-game, they can maybe still accomplish some things. Maybe there will be fight around Rift Herald, unless Longzhu just take it straight up, because they are on the Rift Herald side of the map right now. But Fnatic still have a chance, maybe in some fight right now, at the current state of the game, to still accomplish something. I just feel like the longer the game goes, the harder it's going to be. So them using their kind of tempo here on bottom to try to create a dive is definitely a right decision, because they just want to force over and over, because the odds of them winning the game is just going to be lower and lower and lower. So it's all about just forcing situations, forcing fights, trying to get insane Sono ultimates, and then just try to win the game off of that. But even that is a difficult thing to do. So let's see now. Jess is going for Tear of the Goddess. I'm not going to say that I'm a Sona expert, but I guess if you want to maintain Ardent Sensor long enough, this Tear is going to help you out somehow. But I don't know, man. Like, if you go and continue into the support line of items, then these items are all going to give you mana regen. So I'm not too big of a fan of this. I'm not too big of a fan. Maybe you, if you really need mana, maybe you should just commit to buying Athenes. But even Athenes, like, it's hard to stack for Sona. I don't know, man. I think if you just go Redemption, you should have enough mana regen to maintain buffs. But maybe I'm wrong. Maybe I'm wrong. I just think that you know, it's still a massive investment here. You could have had the Fairy Charm item that gives you bigger heals. That also gives you mana regen. I feel like if you buy Redemption, you should be in a good state to also just continue with that. So Longzhu, they pushed out bottom with Jace, and then he based. He's letting that wave slow push. They use Rift Herald in mid. I'm not too sure about how much damage it did. Jace is also on top side. He's going for that base. He's going to finish the Black Cleaver, most likely. Seems like he's going to stay to push another wave. The Black Cleaver is going to be a big point for Jace, while the Black Cleaver spike is so much more important for Jace than it is for Renekton in terms of the 1v1. Especially as they buy more and more items. Sure, it has the same effect on Ninja Tabi, but I feel like Jace can stack it up quicker, and it's going to be like a bigger spike for him in terms of being better in the all-in and being better in general in the 1v1. Sure, Black Cleaver, you know, that it has the same effectiveness because they both have the same armor, but we are expecting Soaz to maybe buy a bit more armor and maybe go towards that direction. But him buying more armor could be also a liability because the enemy team has a lot of magic damage, right? They have Jace, which kind of balances out very neatly. They have the mixed damage because of Jace, but imagine now if they had the Cho'Gath like I suggested in pick and ban, then all of a sudden they would have a rough situation. But the situation I thought Longzhu were setting themselves up for was to put Jace mid and then pick Cho'Gath, and all of a sudden there's no counters for Cho'Gath, and there would be like a rough decision there for Fnatic. But then most likely Fnatic would still pick Renekton, and it would be a similar situation that the game is in. But I'm a big fan of the Jace blind pick. Like, what are you going to pick into it? There's very little things that beats Jace top. So I talked a lot about the draft, because jumps in and abuses the fact that his passive is quite great. I don't know if Fnatic could have maybe done something more there. They just kind of ran away quite fast, because just as CC did in fact land and Caps could have followed up, and some people on Longzhu did in fact get quite low on HP without you know, much of a commitment. The main thing that I think they were expecting was the fact that Ryze is on blue buff and he could potentially ult in, and the number situation where Renekton was showing bottom and Jace was in mid ready to fight, maybe that is what is making them back off. And I think the more and more I read into that, the more and more makes sense that Fnatic actually decide to back off. So Longzhu just straight up lost mid tower. I missed why it happened, but the only damage that Longzhu have gotten on that mid tower is with the Rift Herald, so it's quite disappointing how much they have accomplished. But usually Ryze is not the one that is going to siege the Syndra. It's going to be very balanced and pushed, if not Syndra being ahead. So obviously the third top is going to be very healthy. But right now Fnatic are being quite proactive on the map. They are invading the red buff, gave it to Twitch, and they are pressuring very, very well here. Actually, no, I promised myself that I wouldn't go back, but I really, really want to go back just to see what happened with the mid turret here. This replay brought to you by YamatoCannon water break. Stay hydrated. Alright, so we saw Fnatic walking around mid lane, Longzhu showing up with Kog'Maw Sejuani on bot lane, Twitch is pushing out top, which means he's going to rotate into mid right after. And then Longzhu, like, Ryze is in position right now, Twitch is basing, is going to walk through bot lane into mid. Kog'Maw Lulu's basing, so is Ryze. Oh, okay, so Fnatic just pick up this mid tower because the mid wave is coming, and Caps didn't base. Ryze did in fact base, and the mid tower is just getting sieged on, and it was quite low from before. So Fnatic just take this opportunity where the enemy bot lane based quite late, and Ryze also based a bit late, and Fnatic just went for the mid tower. Then they are disengaging because they're respecting the fact that Khan is in mid and Ryze could TP in. So kind of an overstay there from Longzhu. They stayed a bit too long. Maybe they should have rotated from bottom into mid and then base with Ryze, and then Ryze catch bottom into mid and then base with Kog'Maw Lulu. So they wouldn't have lost mid tower. That was a potential play. But all in all, Fnatic pick up a mid tower, and it's good that Fnatic are still quite sharp in their approach here. The next thing that happened was that Fnatic went into mid lane as 4. No one is catching top side, so Ryze was showing on top side, which gave Fnatic space here to walk into the enemy jungle. Ryze was showing top, and that's why they're picking up a red buff. So Fnatic are still showing some capabilities here to actually be very active in the game, and I think that's very positive, because the main thing I'm looking at here is, sure, maybe they don't beat Longzhu, but what they can aim for is a 2-4 tiebreaker, unless Gigabyte Marines for some reason, you know, if Gigabyte Marines all of a sudden beat Longzhu and all of a sudden the group is completely crazy and Immortals and Fnatic go home and all pick'ems are ruined because Gigabyte Marines, who put them second, you know, who did that? There's going to be that special snowflake on Twitter. It's like, I put them because I knew that Levi is a fantastic jungler and he's so good on them carries and they are so good strategy wise. You know, there's always going to be that one guy, but generally speaking, whoa, what is happening? Very good situation for Fnatic that they're the ones forcing, because they know that the game going longer and longer is going to be bad for them, but SOAS, you know, on this Renekton can do very, very little. Like, getting into that backline is going to be very difficult. I think the catch that they got on Sejuani was good, because they did in fact force flash, but they heavily overextended. Like, SOAS tried to flank, didn't reach anything with his E, and then he just got picked off, and then Sona was in the mix without, you know, any flash, and she tried to ult in, and you know, even though Fnatic are in a position where they kind of have to force, what tools do they really have to force with? Like, they have like a Rek'Sai tunnel, like they have Sona ultimate, like it's like, you know, it's not gonna happen, you know, it's just, this is not gonna happen. Like, for me, Longzhu won this game at the moment they got the kills, and they had a snowball top, and they got the kill bottom. Like, they just started winning every lane, and Fnatic have a comp where they heavily rely on winning early. So this was something to be proud about, you know, this was something to be happy about. Well, what is SOAS doing right here, right? He's committing, and let's say Fnatic were completely on the same page with this play. I still don't feel like they would have been there in time or could have done anything of use for SOAS to follow up on. So I think this was a bad play from Renekton. It was very desperate. But at the same time, Fnatic have to be desperate. You know, what else can they do in this game? Like, what else do they want to do with this draft? Like, this draft is like really, really silly. You know, it's crazy how silly it is. Kaz is using the plant. Whoa, Shaka Khan takes the red buff. All right. Longzhu is definitely looking like the team to beat in this tournament, though. Longzhu are just playing better and better in every single game, and I feel like the predictions that Longzhu will win Worlds are just gotta come true. But then, you know, I felt like this sometimes in the past, maybe a little bit, maybe now more than ever, honestly. But then SKT just slap everyone in the face like, you didn't believe me, huh? I don't know why I slapped myself so hard, but that is how far I go to make my point clear. So what happened in this game? Let's reassess. We had the situation in mid lane when Longzhu and Fnatic went 1-for-1. We had the trade situation that happened where Kog'Maw got bottom tower, first tower gold, and Fnatic just committed to the play to trade, which I think was a good play from Fnatic. We had the Rift Herald also picked up by Longzhu, but they didn't do much with it. Longzhu also got the Drake eventually when they swapped down to bottom again, where after Kog'Maw got to top tower. and the Rift Herald. The Rift Herald was used in mid lane, didn't accomplish much. Caps is maintaining the mid tower, which is very positive. It's not like Longzhu, sure, they have some picks they can siege with, but taking mid tower off of a Syndra is always going to be a hassle and difficulty. But Longzhu are just the size of their testicles. Holy moly, I can feel them from China. They're just forcing the Nash a bit to test the waters, I feel, more than anything, and they didn't take any risks there. Maybe they gave up a bit of vision. Khan has a red buff, so he can chase us forever. There's no flash on Renekton. Khan can flash after. Renekton is quite deep. Maybe Soaz is gonna pull off some David Copperfield kind of thing, and he does the classic Soaz and he just bases away. But Khan was heavily winning that engagement, and I think that Soaz was surprised by the fact that Khan came into the lane with a red buff. But to be fair, he stole the red buff previously when I said Chaka Khan, so maybe he shouldn't have been so surprised. They should have, you know, but that's the kind of thing that people don't like to share in comms, like, oh, Jace stole our red buff, you know, it sounds negative and maybe it can affect comms negatively and people don't like saying it, but, you know, Soaz got out, so maybe it's pointless that I'm talking about it. So I feel like, you know, looking at Fnatic and their tools to win the game is once again reckless. The reckless show. Can he do something with his stealth? Can he do something in a scenario where he can like commit on the enemy team? There's a lot of squishy targets on Longzhu, right? So maybe it's a possibility. But it was the same case against Immortals. Alright, Kog'Maw dance. Jessis gets one-shotted like the sad Sona that he is. Caps gets smash-a-rude. Seems like the game is super over. Super over. You know, looking back at draft, you know, Renekton against Jace. Massive risk for Renekton. Especially against Khan. Arguably the best Jace top lane in the world. Renekton can do things against Jace. Rek'Sai maybe should have played around top side to make sure that something happened. Khan died now for some reason, not sure why. Maybe with the Rek'Sai red side gank, something. Ooh. That's a 7 AM yawn right there. Maybe Rek'Sai should have pathed into top side to create something earlier, because like red side Rek'Sai ganks into top lane is something that every top laner hates. And maybe this was the issue, you know. You have to have Renekton snowball in this matchup, because kind of what he needs to be able to do is like flash and W the enemy Jace and just kill him within like one rotation of spells. Like he flash W's and then E's to make sure that he gets double stack, ends up behind him, and then he has to E again after the Jace hits him, and you have to pretty much one-shot the Jace. And if you can do that, then Jace struggles a lot, right? But if Jace is ahead and Renekton is behind, you're gonna have a bad time in this game, especially Renekton. Like, what's he gonna do? What's he gonna do against the Rise? What's he gonna do against a Kog'Maw Lulu? Like, good luck in esports, Renekton. You know, back to Florida with you. That's what's up when you pick Renekton in this type of scenario. Then we had the Rek'Sai, you know, maybe we saw MXG have some success with Rek'Sai, but, you know, I just think that there are more premium junglers out there. They could have picked Gragas. They tried to pick something different, and I can respect that, right? But, you know, this was no chance. I just don't think there was anything innovative about this. There was nothing necessarily unique about it, and maybe, you know, maybe they could have played out the game similar to Gigabyte Marines, because there wasn't really a red line there either. But you know, Fnatic got outperformed in the skirmishes, and the biggest difference between Immortals and Gigabyte Marines was that Gigabyte Marines, with the wacky, crazy composition and the Kayn, etc., they were the ones winning the skirmishes, and Fnatic lost every single one so far. So that is a big issue. The redeeming factor for them was that they got the mid tower, they punished that fact that Longzhu did, and they managed to get enemy red buff. But more than that, you know, to be fair, Longzhu didn't really give them any windows after Longzhu just got that kill in mid lane for Cuz. And I have to praise Cuz for how he played this game, because he solved the situation in mid, and he completely controlled everything that Broxah did, and just outplayed them around every corner. He pushed in the mid lane when he had to, and beautiful display from Cuz. I think it's the member that is talked about the least in the team, and Soaz gets killed here, and Lulu picks up a freaking assist with the redemption, the cross-map redemption. This is at least less embarrassing than Nasus, and you know, it's alright. The game is in a tough spot. Fnatic can't do much. They're pretty much talking about the next game at this point. I'm curious. I'm not too sure about the schedule. I'm curious who's going to play next. Is Fnatic gonna stay on stage, or is Longzhu gonna stay on stage? I'm kind of excited for the Fnatic matchups more than anything. Longzhu is always interesting to watch because most of the games are pretty stumpy. They're pretty stumpy, and it hypes them up more for the best of fives, and it hypes them up more for these situations, because the insane part about Longzhu is they are so diverse. Look at this top lane and the amount of different champions he plays. And we also saw that Kaz could play the Kha'Zix if it was necessary. Oh, Longzhu with the kill on Prey. Prox is now behind enemy lines and is trying to get in here. Longzhu are still in the driver's seat when it comes to this battle. BDD with the movement. BDD with a massive level advantage, even though that Prey died in this situation. It seems to turn out fine for Longzhu. They use some summoners there on Prey. They're TPing now towards the Drake to do it as fast as possible because they just want to do it and then base. We will just see how the rest of the game pans out. I'm spacing completely on when Nashor was taken. When was Nashor taken? I just don't remember. I need to go back and kind of check because it's driving me crazy. Keep in mind, guys, that I'm operating at a very crazy sleep schedule here, and I am not on maximum capacity when it comes to how much you know, my memory is serving me when it's 7 AM and I didn't sleep yet. But I felt like doing this. This is different. Maybe I'll give up halfway because maybe I'm just too tired and can't do anything of quality. But hopefully I can pull through. That is my goal here. So Longzhu are faking the Baron. Then they are forcing Fnatic to move towards top side. They get the angle on mid lane, and then we had the team fight. Yeah, okay, I remember now. Just got one-shotted, and then same thing could be said for Reckless, and then it was a free Nashor. Alright. Okay, and then, oh, okay, I remember now, I remember. Khan got caught in the 1v1, or the 2v2, or the 2v1. Okay, now it makes sense. Sorry for that. We had the 1v1 kill, and we can take a look at this teamfight situation again. Prey flashed the Sona ultimate, and then gets hit by a huge Syndra stun into the Syndra ultimate, and he was a bit too greedy there. He was trying to make insane moves with the Storm Raiders, right? But it didn't really pan out for him. Flash from Reckless to pick up a kill. Alright, and now we're back on the same page as before. You know, a lot of people are going to ask the question, like, how do you beat Longzhu? What is their weakness? And it's really hard to pinpoint, because I think when it comes down to when you see these massive teams clash, is that you know, both teams understand what space they want to control over, what space they want to fight over. Let's say both teams understand that they need mid priority, and then there are clashes and fights and battles over mid priority because both teams have good drafts that allow them to take mid priority and allow them to do things. All of a sudden you see these big clashes, all of a sudden one team wins one clash and all of a sudden they take it away, right? And that is like, you know, the minimal things, the mechanical things that determine team fights. And then when I compare them to SK Telecom, or maybe Samsung even, Samsung have showed weakness. I feel like the game against RNG, they got outdrafted. They had the Twitch Rakan bot lane that was heavily under fire. ADG also against SKT. SK Telecom was heavily under fire when they had the Rakan Twitch. They salvaged the game with a 10k gold deficit with this insane engage that they did, and the Royana 4-man ultimate and all that beautiful jazz. But all in all, SKT have shown weakness. I feel like Peanut did a lot of plays when he couldn't do it. He didn't really play accordingly when it comes to playing with the team, and I think that is a weakness. the inconsistency of Peanut and Huni. That is like a big question mark when it comes to SK Telecom. When it comes to Longzhu, I feel like it's hard for me to pinpoint question marks. Let's take a look at this teamfight. Prey gets ulted on. He QSS is out of the situation. He's still fine, but Cuz dies very, very fast. And a big cap stun. Whoa. Prey is doing shit ton of damage with this good stuff here. He has this Hurricane doing a lot of stuff. I want to take a look back because I was talking about other teams and other groups. Let's take a look at this situation. So Longzhu is in a chokehold here where Sona is getting a quite decent ult. Kaz is also doing his duty as a tank, but he gets ulted on by the Syndra. Reckless also did a lot of damage there. Good stun here. I don't know if there would be a situation here where the Reckless is more ready and playing more with caps, if this stun would have mattered more, because you can see that Reckless is walking a bit further here, and maybe the situation where Reckless would stay more intact and more together with the team, that he would accomplish more together with the stun that Caps is landing here, because I feel like he could have landed more autos here, and the fact that the Reckless walks away maybe is the reason why Khan is walking forward. But I think Reckless didn't need to take such a defensive position. Longzhu played around their cooldowns, and they kind of disengaged the fight during the time where Kog'Maw had cooldown on W. Executed it quite neatly there, and you know, I feel like Fnatic got the best fight they could have possibly hoped for. They killed Kaz really early on, they got good stuns off, but the fact that they're so far behind on gold, you know, even if they kill one threat, two threats, there are still so many other targets on the enemy team that can do so many great things here. Longzhu are just gonna push it home and finish up the game. Fnatic with their comp, you know, they had to be super far ahead early, and it was quite a disappointing draft, you know. But to be fair, you know, if the game before Gigabyte Marines won with something similar, sure, they had Levi on Kayn, and you can argue that that is very different, more of a carry champ that scales well, and of course Gigabyte Marines composition doesn't scale that bad because they had the Urgot instead of Renekton, but they had kind of the same kind of niche to it, right? That it was a composition that really didn't mesh together too well. But all in all, like, of course, I think Gigabyte Marines draft was better because they scaled better. But here there was very little redeeming factors about it. Renekton was picked, and I don't know how much I feel about this Fnatic draft. And you know, we're trying to make a judgment for how Fnatic will be in the rest of their matchups, and that is so hard to do here. They gave us so little information. We saw that one play where they got a mid tower, it's just like, yay, Fnatic. We saw that one play where they got a red buff, and it was like, ooh. And then we saw some attempts here at team fighting, which were okay, you know, but who knows? I feel like this gave us very little information, and I am sincerely hoping that we get better drafts from Fnatic coming into other teams. I'm hoping that they just try to hide as much as possible, and they just try to play a fun game here against Longzhu, try to do something different, and hopefully they draft differently. Because I feel like if they do this against Immortals and Gigabyte Marines, then they're gonna get smacked around again. So let's see. Let's see. See you guys in the next game. Thank you very much for watching. I think I'm gonna do like the classic style review when it comes into the next games. I think reviewing the team fights and going through them very thoroughly is something that I want to do as well. So let's do that in the next game. Thank you for watching.